Hey, you like cars? Back at it. We're back at it. Welcome back for another wonderful, glorious, illustrious podcast. That is CarQuicks, episode 85. I'm back in the building. I'm back. I'm recording this a little late in my little weekly schedule, but you know, life. What can you say? But anyways, how are you doing out there? How are the friends, the family, the loved ones, the children, the goals, the obstacles that we're getting over them every week, every day? You know, it's a process. We got to keep going at it, and we can't stop regardless of how we feel. Unfortunately, that's what it is about adulting. You know, sometimes you just don't feel like it. You got to sit down, say a prayer, align yourself, focus, and get to it. So I'm getting to it this week, okay? Another wonderful broadcast is coming your way. I'm glad that you're joining me. If it's your first time here, subscribe, like, follow, look at the old podcast, look at the videos. I'm on Spotify, I'm on YouTube. Go through all of that. Go through all the channels. Tell a friend to tell a friend, as always. But we're here for an important subject matter, and that is cars, okay? That's what we come here to do every week. That's why I call myself the CarQuicks Podcast. It's Cameron Biggs, your host. If I didn't introduce myself, I'm introducing myself now. How are you? Now, important matters. What happened in the automotive space this week? Not much, but we got a couple things. Let me start off with Subaru, because, oh my gosh. I just, Subaru is master manipulator, okay? Master of the games, Hunger Games. Unfortunately, there's nothing to win at the end of this because I'm talking about them releasing yet another spec version of a WRX, but it's not an STI. And they keep getting, they just won't build one, really. And honestly, it's funny. I like talking about it because it's like a funny joke at this point. We know that they're not doing it. The closest thing that we got to them even thinking about hinting at it was that limited edition one that they released at Tokyo Auto Salon around that time, which is the S210, which had 300 horsepower. It was only on the CVT, which was, I can't even fathom wanting a CVT STI. Like, for what? Doesn't even match the ethos of rallying. But anyways, they recently released a model that's coming out to the Australian market, maybe comes into the other Asian markets. It's definitely not coming to the US. It's absolutely useless for the US market, but it was called the WRX TS Spec B. Now, if I gave you that name, right, by itself, if I put Spec B on a WRX, just like, let's say if I was going to tease the public and say, we got a special version of a WRX coming. We heard your cries. We're going to bring the Spec B. Going back to Group B Rally and Spec B and what that meant, it usually meant like, oh, we're about to get like purebred motorsports application for the street. Let me tell you what they did. First of all, horsepower is the same. We got the same FA20 motor, 271 horsepower. Cool. You already know about it. You get the same outside look. It's not like they've changed a different color. There's no stripes. There's no painted fenders. Still the body cladding that we have all come to understand was not the greatest move on the design language. And it has a 6-speed manual instead of a CVT. Well, that's better. We're kind of getting somewhere. And they threw a wing on it. That's it. Yo, that's it. Instead of it being a high-spec version in those markets that only comes to CVT, like with the Recaro buckets, like how we had the GT version here, and you couldn't get the GT with the 6-speed manual. You only could get like a WRX Premium, and then they brought the TS here, and they're like, okay, you can get all the options that you wanted in the GT model, but you could also get it with the manual and 6-speed, 6-piston Brembo brakes, so we're going to call it the TS model. And it's the same exact thing, though this time they threw on the wing from like the old STI models that literally, if you're into the aftermarket, for the people that actually like VB WRX models and they've been modifying them, throwing on the wing that looks like the old previous generation STI has been a modification that everybody has done. I think Aeroflow Dynamics is like one of the leaders in giving people that wing painted to their factory paint code to slap on the back of the trunk of any WRX. I've seen plenty of them out here in Houston. I've seen plenty of them online. I didn't realize that Subaru was going to take that modification, slap it on their car, and then throw on the Spec B badging. I can't believe this. This is outrageous right now. Like, these models do nothing but dilute the real lineage that those badges had, in my opinion. The STI badge or Spec B or whatever badge you want to come on there. STI, especially, to me, it's getting to the point like how I critique Nissan in the Nismo badging, where they just started slapping Nismo on anything. And so now we got Spec B on what is essentially the exact same WRX that we've already had this entire time. But this time we're going to throw on a wing. We're going to give you a 6-speed Manny. We might throw on the 6-piston Brembo brakes. Then we're going to throw a wing on it, and we're going to say it's a Spec B. And then we're going to shoot an ad campaign of it going up and down a gravel dirt road, and we're going to say it's Spec B. No. Again. Once again, this is just what we already have. We already have it. It's a WRX. It's fine. It's fine. A lot of us have moved on to the idea that we're never getting a true STI model with like a 400 horsepower motor and just true motorsports rallying pedigree into a street car. We just know it's not going to happen. Honestly, at this stage in the game, now, I'm not saying that the VBWRX is all in all bad. I'm saying if you're coming off the hill of an STI model, where I had the WRX STI hatchback, if you had a VA STI, if you had the sedan, if you had an STI, true STI model, coming from that car and going into a VB, for some people, maybe the transition was good enough because of what the aftermarket could do for the motor. For others, it was just more than the power gains that you can get by modifying something. They wanted the entire pedigree and the chassis tuning and all the things that they did on an STI model. It's not there. So there's really no point to go from the hills, the top pedigree we had at the STI, and kind of drop down to a WRX that's currently out now and say, oh, it's kind of like the same thing. No. I don't want to hear it. Okay, I'm done. Now, if you truly just want something that's as close to what that ethos was of an STI, especially in the hatchback version, Toyota gave it to you. It's called a GR Corolla. Now, I'm not saying that because I own one. I kind of am, but I came from that world. I know about the WRX. I was on board with the future until I saw what they released. Okay, like the rumors in the car scoop and all the renders they showed were saying, hey, if they do this the right way, if we get this done the right way, we might end up with something truly dope. And we did not. So really, I just jumped off the ship. I said, hey, guess what? I'm out. I'll see you later. Toyota showed up and said, let me show you what they could have done in a true hatchback that they did not do. And hence we have the GR Corolla. But we're going to talk about that later. But I'm just saying, Subaru is continuing to tease and just won't release just a true STI. Now, maybe they're waiting until whatever the next iteration of the WRX is. I'm sure it's hybridized in some form or fashion. Hopefully it's not all electric, because we've already seen every single manufacturer in these past weeks of me podcasting has constantly changed their tune and said, we can no longer just rest on an EV platform or an EV product line, because nobody's buying the cars and they're depreciating like rocks thrown off of the Empire State Building. I mean, it's just not a good look. So anyways, Subaru once again has shown another model. So if you're looking for whatever country you live in, whatever region that they ship these cars into, there is some version of some WRX that is basically hinting at what it would look like if we actually did it for real. That's what we got. Another TS model called the Spec B, which is absolutely hilarious. Now, going into something else that I hinted at last week, sometimes when I'm recording this podcast, I almost sometimes surprise myself where I'm like ahead of the curve on an idea or maybe something I'm thinking of. And I just throw out an idea and say, hey, it'd be kind of cool. And then the next week I see a news article saying, hey, guess what this person said that works at this company. And I'm like, oh, snap, right in line with what I said. I can foresee some things, not everything, but some things I can. And one of those things was when I was talking about AI car design. I said when that gentleman Rubenstein had made that Volvo AI render or digital render, and then somebody took that and threw it onto like a track, and people thought that was really Volvo designing a brand new boxy Volvo car, and it came to find out that that was not the case. And in that little spiel I was talking about, I said, I do foresee a future where AI is used in car design to kind of test the market or pump out a design and say, would you guys like this? I was using it in conjunction with GM trying to figure out what they want to do with the new Camaro. And I said, I can foresee that future where they kind of throw out a design and say, well, let us know if you really feel this. Well, I'm not the only one that is thinking that that's going to be the future, because a gentleman over at Mercedes Benz, he's a global design chief. His name was Gordon Wagner. Wagoner? Wagener. It's probably Wagner. I don't think that E. I think the E is silent. But anyways, he said, and I quote, I'm going to read it to you. He said, AI will drastically change the way we design. I think in 10 years, maybe most of design will be done by AI. It will make designers obsolete. My successor will be a machine and will be much cheaper than my salary. And he had like a, little chuckle laugh at the end. Now, I think that was more of a nervous laugh than just being like, haha, it's funny. I think it's more so like, oh, snap, we might be on borrowed time. 10 years can sound long, but it's kind of short because I have kids and 10 years flew by. Okay, flew. So here's what he's talking about. He was saying that right now, what I was talking about with GM and the Camaro is that he was saying that right now, to design a car, you have to have a designer. They have to have gone to school for designing. They have to be skilled. They have to do drafts. It costs money. You are paying a salary. You're paying for benefits. You're paying for a group of people to come together collectively to design a car moving forward. So I understand from the standpoint of just what's the cheapest bottom dollar you can do to get design out, I can definitely foresee them creating an AI machine that's just pumping out ideas and designs. And obviously, there is somebody on the other end that would command the AI to create something, because you do have to give it prompts. AI isn't just going to read into your brain, at least not yet, and tell you what you're thinking and show you what that image is. So you still got to go in there and prompt something. What he is saying, that that's still a cheaper person than somebody that is talented and skilled in drafting car design. That's a totally different situation. So he's already hinting at the idea that, hey, we already use AI. He also said in this article that they use it currently at Mercedes-Benz, but 99% of it is junk. The 1%, they can kind of tweak something into showing a little bit of an idea, but they still need someone on the other end. So he's saying that in 10 years' time, when AI develops further, they are going to get to a point where they can just tell it, hey, I have an idea. I want it to look like this. Take this design, take what this car looks like now, give me a more retro future, whatever prompts you want to say, and then it can kind of spit out ideas. And if you don't like it, as opposed to telling the team to go back and have a meeting and tell them, hey, we need to recreate this or clean up the design, or the C-suite doesn't like it, the machine, the computer just goes back and say, hey, make another one. All right, do another one. And then they can come up with 30 without having to pay a salary of people for weeks on end to do that. Now, here's what I say objectively to that idea. While you can have AI do all these things and you can say it's cheaper, there is still going to be a separation of a true artist and a separation of some talent when it comes to car design. And I do think some of this is manufacturer's own fault, because right now, none of the current car design is garnering that much emotion. There might be things that we like, but you don't see like this overall consensus that car design right now is what it was years ago, when we have these classic cars and these classic designs that we know and love. Right now, a lot of the things are just so polarizing that we accept them for what they are, because one, you don't have an option. Two, the older, cleaner models are even more money. Or three, you can't even find one and it's just a rust bucket, so it doesn't even matter. If you don't got the money to restore one, who cares if you like an old 964 or old E30 BMW? If you don't have a lot of money, you're not getting one. So I do think some of it is their own fault. Like Mercedes, for instance, they had the EQS model. EQS was their lineup that they're doing for electric cars. Now, I said that they were eggs on wheels. Like some people said jelly beans. I'm like, none of these things looked overly attractive. They just look like just afterthoughts. Like just take half an oval and just put some wheels on it. It wasn't any thought pattern. So much so that Mercedes said moving forward that their design language of their EQ electric vehicles would not deviate from the standard models. I said this so long ago. I said, if you want to make a successful EV car, or just to sprinkle in the idea, stop making them look so drastically different than the ICE counterpart, and at least show that there is some lineage. We're like, oh, that's the brother, not the third, second, fourth cousin. Okay, have some DNA in there. So, for instance, they're going to say the new S Class is going to look like the S Class and there will be an electric version. Smart idea. BMW with the M3. They said it's going to look like the M3, the ICE power one, and there's going to be an electric one. The same thing I've said about companies like Toyota and Honda. When it's time to make the electric Camry, just make it an electric version of what Camry is already sitting on the lot. Don't try to reinvent the wheel by removing all the grills, making it look really, really sleek, or just doesn't have any character in the front, and then say, oh, why does nobody want to buy that? Like, because they don't like how it looks. Look at the Nissan Leaf. That looks horrific. For what reason? It didn't have to look like that. Even if you say drag coefficiencies and all these things that help with mileage, it still isn't enough to warrant how bad it looks, okay? It doesn't have to look like that. So I do think that digital renders, like the gentleman that did the Volvo, I do think that AI designs that you see on Instagram, I do think that that becomes more and more of a thing. I also do think that they should hire some of these digital designers and people that have YouTube videos where they take a car model that came out and show how they would clean it up. I think you need to get those people because I think it's a better fresh set of eyes than trying to always do something different. And I do question how some of these giant manufacturers and these crazy big design powerhouses at these manufacturers come up with some of these designs and then later are confused why nobody likes them. I'm like, have you ran this past anybody that's not within your circle in that top floor? Did you go outside to the supermarket and just say, hey, I know you own one of these cars. Do you think this looks good for the future? And they will tell you if it is or not. So, I mean, he got 10 years. If there's any constellation prize, I mean, he's already the chief. I'm sure he's paid well. And if anything, if he knows he got 10 years, and I guess, put your stamp down for like a classic design on your way out so that you will be remembered forever. Because if you make a good car design, you'll be remembered forever for that car design. Now, getting into some other car manufacturers, this is kind of not the greatest news, but Aston Martin was in the news because they are talking about doing a layoff. Now, I don't know if they're still talking about it. It might be at this time of this recording. It might already be happening. But there's 170 jobs, unfortunately, people, not just, I know they say jobs, but that's just a good way, a PR way of saying we're about to ruin 170 people's lives because we're about to take their livelihood away from them. So 170 jobs are going away. And it's because Aston Martin sales have gone down by like 4%. Their debt has gone up to like 1.47 billion. They have to basically adjust and lay off things. But the interesting part of this article, and the reason why I'm talking about it, wasn't just because of the layoffs, which is unfortunate. It was because they said that the light at the end of the tunnel is the Valhalla. Now, the Valhalla is a $1.1 million supercar. I don't know if it falls into the hypercar category. That would be the Valkyrie, but it's a $1.1 million supercar that they're making 999 units. And they're like, that will give us the increase in revenue we need to weather this storm. And what I found interesting, I was like, now I know there are a lot of people in this world with a lot of money. And I know there's a lot of people with the means to buy $1 million car. And there is over 1,000 people that are willing to do that. I just didn't know if Aston Martin had that much cachet to sell near $1,000 million supercars, because even if you look at somebody like Ferrari with the F80, if they made 1,000, they sell 1,000, but they have a business model where they only make up to like 500 or 700 or a certain amount to make sure that the value stays very high, and those cost much higher than $1 million. They cost closer to 4. Same thing with the Bugatti. It's a Tourbillon coming out of the Chiron. All those cars could be made up to higher numbers, but they keep them down. And I was looking at this article and I was like, how do they have a business model that could sustain $1 million supercars as the means to keep the building and the lights on for all these other workers? Now, I'm not saying that supporting the 1% of this world isn't a lucrative business, because some of these fashion houses, YSL and, all these places you see at Paris Fashion Week, that's controlled and basically funded by the 1%. The rest of us that might go in there and buy like a Gucci belt or wallet or scarf is not who they're looking at to keep the lights on. They're looking at people that are paying a certain amount of money to keep everything moving along. So maybe Aston Martin is correct that they can sustain that. But I also think that maybe this is probably when we're going to start seeing introduction of smaller models or cheaper models to help push that revenue up. For instance, and this is just a random idea that came ahead, I was reading this. They have the DBX, which is their SUV. There's like supercar SUV that goes up against the Lamborghini Urus or the Ferrari Purosangue. And unfortunately, because SUVs sell, not like I'm the biggest proponent of supercar level SUVs, but it is what it is. They probably need to make something that's doing combat with like the Porsche Macan. See, Porsche figured out how to just make money hand over fist when it comes to Panameras and 911s and Cayennes and Macans, and they've done it very well. And so I think Aston Martin, if they're trying to weather whatever storm they're working on, I wouldn't be surprised if they're working on a competitor to the Macan, because there's really nobody else that's trying to battle Porsche in that segment. And Porsche right now is trying to reverse course because the newest Macan they made only EV. I do like how it looks though. And they're now coming back saying that was a mistake. We need to kind of introduce some gas power one, because guess what? The previous Macan owners aren't trying to just jump into getting an EV only car. So Aston Martin has Vantage, Vanquish. So I'm saying like a Vantage, a step down from the DBX when it comes to like a SUV. I wouldn't be surprised if they're working on that now to kind of tally some more units and sales on top of what they need to do, because I can't imagine that the Valhalla is the main reason. Because one, I'm thinking you probably have to make some turnaround the next couple of years. You're about to sell 1,000 of these things within the next 2-3 years. I've heard people talk about the Valhalla, but the main thing that everybody speaks about when it comes to Aston Martin currently, when it comes to a supercar, is the hypercar Valkyrie. That's the one that everybody talks about because it's absolutely nuts. Now, Valhalla is dope. If I had just flush lottery Powerball billion-dollar winnings, I might get a Valhalla. I mean, maybe, who knows? I'm just saying that it seems kind of interesting that they're like, hey, the Valhalla's our ticket out of here. And I'm like, dang, $1 million? And you need to sell 1,000 of them? And it's not even like people are like kicking your door in like GT3s and F80s. I mean, they might be, but I watch enough people on YouTube that have supercar collections, and very rarely does Aston Martin show up. I do think it's a missed category. I do think that if I had the means, I would have an Aston Martin. I love how the Vanquish is. I think that they have specced out some amazing ones I've seen in person. I think that the whole entire idea of the car, grand touring, supercar level of performance, is a great category to be in. We'll see what they do and how they make it out of there. But unfortunately, people are going to lose their job just because they got to figure out what they want to do next. Now, there is something that's been going on. So I was talking about, I think it was not last week. It was a couple weeks ago. We had the Shelby GT 350. It was a new Shelby GT 350. Not the one that Ford Performance did, was a Voodoo engine, the 8,000 RPM. Like, listen, that's a classic. They basically took the name because they own the rights to the Shelby American, and they made the new GT 350. And they produced it and showed it off and said it's like $109,000, type of car with a supercharged V8 based on a Mustang GT. Now, at that time, I said, I mean, if you really care about the Shelby name and you want the little placard and the pamphlets and all the little doodads that they give you when you buy one of those cars, and you're a collector and you've been buying Shelbys and that's what you want, and you just want a one and done from a reputable company, I understand you doing that. But I argue that I could build that exact same thing for vastly less money than you spend in the six figures to get the exact same thing that I see every other day at some random car meet in Texas or at Cars and Coffee. Folks got supercharged Mustangs day in and day out, okay? So Hennessy, who's based in Texas, they released their version of their high performance Mustang. It was called It was called the Super Venom, 850 horsepower, based on the Mustang Dark Horse or the Mustang GT. So V8, supercharger package, aero kit, wheels, wing, suspension, tuning. And I say tuning like springs, some better sway bars. I don't know if this one ran coilovers. It may have. They might be an option. Brakes kind of remain the same. They probably have a package to get you bigger brakes because of how much speed it's carrying. A 10.9 second quarter mile, so it's faster. Obviously, 850 horsepower. And then they said it's $149,000 to $163,000. I just don't understand how we're spending this type of money on Mustangs that are essentially what you could build over the weekend. And here's what I mean. I'm not saying that Hennessy doesn't put some other tuning prowess in there. I'm not going to act like they haven't built and made amazing cars over the years, and that's why they have a viable business that's running. I'm just saying that if I'm looking at these Mustangs that they're making from Shelby and all these other manufacturers, whether it's Roush, actually, yeah, even Roush or some of those, right now, the new versions of them that they're building all have the same package. It's the same supercharger, the same motor, the same horsepower. So the only difference now would be if you want a Hennessy car or if you want a Shelby American car, it's exactly the same amount of power. Shelby American one looks like it's a little bit cheaper. The Hennessy one does have a base where it's a better performing Mustang with the dark horse or a GT one, but 163 grand is absolutely ridiculous. Like, at no point in time would that make any sense. You can walk yourself over to Ford, grab a GT, slap on the supercharger, go get any body kit you want, wrap it, paint it, get any set of wheels you want from anybody, HRE, all the way to Volk Racing, whatever you want, you can put on this car. You can get whatever suspension you want, upgrade the brakes, and I'm still going to have money left over. Like, ample money. And if I'm spending that type of 160 grand, there's a lot of other cars out there. There are a lot of other cars. You really got to be like bona fide Hennessy performance customer. Like, I got the Raptor, I got a Velociraptor, I had a Hennessy Viper. Like, you really got to be deep in the catalog to warrant trying to pay this much money, because Dodge Vipers, I know their stock, but they got V10s and 6.4 liter motors and are now creeping up in price for 160 grand. I can go get an ACR. Well, maybe not ACR. I think ACR is like 200,000 now. But regardless, there's Vipers out there, okay? There's Porsches out there. There's things out there. I know Porsches and a Mustang is muscle car, V8, front engine, rear wheel drive. I get it. I'm just saying that if your whole MO is like, I want to have a Mustang with a supercharged motor, I don't think $150,000 starting is a good place to begin. I'm just saying there are a lot of car builders and shops out here that can build you that idea for less money. It looks cool. And I don't dislike Hennessy. I like the cars they made. And I just saw a video of them delivering one of those F5 Venom, Spider super hyper cars, 2,000 horsepower, $3 million one, to the gentleman that I watch on YouTube that has a wild car collection. So I'm not saying that they don't make cars that are pretty amazing. I'm just saying this kind of feels like the same thing that's getting rinsed and repeated when it comes to companies making Mustang GTs that are performance related and to be sold with like a warranty to customers. Because I'm like, if that's the business model, like, I might need to figure out something. Now, speaking about the Roush thing, I kind of want to jump to that. The one that I do give is props for doing something different is RTR. Like, the ones that Von Gittin had made, the RTR ones had their own bespoke kit, their own look, design elements, interior stuff. Like, that to me makes sense because they did so much different and it follows the idea of what they built for the drift cars. So I'm like, that to me makes more sense than it just being a body kit and supercharged package. That's essentially what it is. I don't know. I mean, I guess the market is there. I guess people are kicking down the door saying, hey, I want a Mustang with a supercharger kit and I got over $100,000 to blow right now. So listen, if it's a good business model, all the power to them. I need to jump in on this too. Let me just get a little sliver of that percentage. I'm gonna start making CarQuicks Mustangs, okay? I can go get the supercharger, got throw it on the weekend. Little tune, little package, throw on some wheels. I got some ideas, get a little kit. Maybe call TJ Hunt, tell him to give me that wide body kit that Ford blocked, and tell him to print me up another one. There's ideas out there you could do. But moving along, there was some news from an old British company, Morgan. I don't know if you listen to this, you don't know who Morgan is. I don't really hold it against you because it's a very unique, eccentric type of sports car made from the company. It's a British company called Morgan, and they make their cars that look like this. I'm gonna throw it up on the screen because the only way I can describe this is if I say Corolla DeVille because my brain is going that direction because I was gonna say an Excalibur, but I'm like, if you don't know what an Excalibur is, and I'm really just talking nonsense. It just flew over your head. So just think very old British cars, which is the curved front fenders, very long hood. You sit far back into the car, very short rear overhang, short trunk, very classic look. So Morgan is releasing a new version of it called the Super Sport. They didn't show any pictures of it, but they did say on March 13th, which I'm going to watch, Hammond from Top Gear Richard Hammond is going to reveal the Morgan, which is perfect because he is that type of buyer. Like I can already hear and see his eccentric self revealing and talking about this car. Is going to have the same inline turbo 6 from BMW. I'm assuming it's a B58 motor or something along those lines. It would have to be B58 because I don't imagine what other inline 6 turbo they're going to be using. But that is coming out and it's going to basically carry on the look and design that Morgan has been doing. Now, what was interesting was that I kind of forgot about Morgan. Like, not that I was checking for a British sports car, but I remember Morgan because my aunt had one. Now, here's a little backstory because they had one of these. And if I remember correctly, I'd asked about getting it because they had it in their garage. It was doing absolutely nothing. Now, I was a kid, didn't have any means to restore anything because they'd been sitting in the garage like that, like a barn find. And I remember like, who's getting this car? And I remember they're telling me, oh, we're going to give it to your cousins because they've always asked for the car. Now, mind you, obviously time passes, you move away from your family. I just randomly tap in being like, whatever happened to that Morgan that was sitting in the garage that nobody wanted to pass off to your boy, the car loving cousin? And they're like, oh yeah, sold and somebody did something with it. And I was just like, another classic story of the car guy not getting the car because somebody was promised it in the family. But I mean, there's no hard feelings because honestly, I had no clue what I would have done if they would have handed me that. And remember, the way those were built back in the day, they were made out of wood. Like the chassis was bonded wood. This new version is bonded aluminum. So I might have gotten that thing and just tried to hit the streets and it would have splintered in half. And I would have been like, I don't know what I'm doing now. Anyways, that was just a little side story. There was a Morgan somewhere in the family. And I'm sure there's many people in the U.S. probably have a story like that too. But so they're making a new one. If you're interested in it, March 13th will be the reveal of what the Morgan looks like. And it's an interesting car. You should read about them because the people that have reviewed them, like Top Gear magazine, or you can go on YouTube and see people driving them as well, have talked about how they're fun, unique, and there's less unique, quirky type of sports cars than there used to be. So seeing something like that is truly unique, especially to people that are buying into those cars. Now, there was something that sadly, once again, America strikes again when it comes to their inability to love the wagon. And that is the Volvo Polestar V60 engineered. I said that wrong. Hold on. The V60 Polestar engineered has been discontinued. Now, Polestar, if you don't know, Volvo's like their performance outfit, also their kind of electric EV outfit as well. But Polestar, when they put their hands on the V60 wagon, which was like the smaller version of the V90, I love how the V90 looks. So like, I love it. I would have gotten a V90. Unfortunately, I found out how much V90s cost. Now, when we were getting our van, but the minivans, the Sienna still trumps the wagon in that respect because of the children and how we operate with that. But if I had the means to get just a wagon to cruise around in, the V90 I love. So the V60 was a smaller version and they made a performance version from Polestar. It had adjustable suspension, big brakes, Recaro seats in there, I believe, from just, bucket seats, just all around great performing car. If you read on the forums like I have, people would tune them, they'd set them up for backroad racing, pick up the kids, go to grocery shopping. It's all the things, all the space you need, all the utility without having to sit up 10 feet in the air with a high center of gravity. Just a perfect kind of setup, which is why wagons rule. Unfortunately, though, they only sold like 3,500 wagons, and I'm sure about 3 of them were Polestars because of how much money those cost in general. So they're discontinuing that. The V90 and I think the V90 Country, or the one that's kind of a little bit lifted, those remain and those stay, which is still good because if you've never seen the V90 one, just go check one out. Those look amazing. But we lose another wagon. I mean, the wagons we have now, like the performance ones, unfortunately, are like outrageously expensive. BMW M5 wagon, if I had the money, absolutely. RS6 Avant, I can't afford it. And not even buying those cars, some of it's maintaining them. Like I've talked to people that had an RS6 Avant and they talk to be like, oh, I got 20,000 mile service coming up, and they look notably flustered. Okay, they're like, I got to go in for the 20K service. I'm like, dang, that sounds like it's going to be astronomical. Especially if you look how gigantic the brakes are on the RS6 Avant. If they're talking about replacing a brake pad, a rotor, a tire, all of it's bad. All of it is dos muchos, okay? Too much. But, we lose that wagon. We still have the other ones. If you like wagons, I'm telling you, we are dwindling down to the bottom of the barrel. Okay. If you like a wagon, I suggest you go find one and buy it. If you like JDM wagons, like a WRX wagon, the Bug Eye, better go find one. Find one and hold on. Now, before I get out of here, GR Corolla updates. Now, in the beginning, I was talking about the GR Corolla with WRX, and I'm here to just remind y'all again. If you're thinking about an STI hatchback and you don't feel like dealing with the Boxer engine or the EJ25 or anything like that, and you're saying, what is the future looking like? It's sitting at your dealership right now. It's called a GR Corolla. We got you. Now, my update is my little throttle controller thing that I'm going to be testing and putting on the car has arrived, and I'll be doing that this weekend. Now, weekend is also my birthday weekend, so I get older, which is great because that's the goal. The goal is to get older. That is always my thing. I never care about birthdays coming and going and getting older. I think that is an awesome thing because I'm here standing. Now, I'm going to install that. I'm gonna separate the two videos. Okay, you gotta play the YouTube game, which I also like playing as well. Sometimes people say that like it's a knock. I love just recording a video, seeing what people say, seeing how it does, coming up with another idea, recording another video. To me, it's just all fun. Like I don't have any qualms with recording videos and doing all my little setup. So I'm gonna record an install video, then I'm gonna record a video of me testing it out and showing people why I like it and what to do with it, because there's a slight bit, just a teensy bit of probably controversy when it comes to this idea because of the companies that have done the wrong thing, like pedal commanders type situations where they were having an issue with the Mopar cars and what they were doing to those. This is not that case. The other day I was driving this car. So this car has drive-by-wire. Anybody that has a GR Corolla or has driven it enough knows that there is a delay when it comes to you pressing gas and what happens. Literally the other day I went to HEB. I come out of HEB, I hit the roundabout with a little bit of spirited delivery. Come to the exit, it's clear, about to hit the corner. I'm flowing through the gears, everything's flowing good. When I say like I went to hit the gas and it was like, yo, not right now. Sorry, you got the wheel turned a little too sharp. Sorry, hold on, let me get second gear. Oh, no, hold on, not right now, this second, but here we go now. I mean, I was just like, I can't put this throttle controller on fast enough. Now, the car itself can run in sport mode, and if you put it in sport mode, it does do better when it comes to how it responds to your throttle inputs. But I want some more. I want to see what this does, and I saw a gentleman actually record a video on what I'm putting on a while ago, but I'm gonna do my own spin on it, and I'm gonna just introduce it to some more people to see what they think about it and how they feel when it comes to how this car performs with it. And one of the things I do want to review is some of the features it has. Like it has an option of like a valley mode or an anti-theft mode. The valley mode basically stops the RPMs or the ability for the car to accelerate any faster to any other RPM. So let's say you put it at 3,000 and you take your car to the dealership and you're afraid that the lot porter guy is going to try to do something dumb. You can go into your app, lock it at 3,000 RPMs. They try to jump in and try to do some joyride because they got to go test drive the car after an oil change, which is foolishness. And they realize they can't go over 20 miles an hour. So they bring it back. Or you park it somewhere, you don't really trust the area, or you've heard about car thefts. You put in the mode where the throttle pedal's completely off. They get in the car, try to hit on the gas, and nothing happens. So I want to highlight those features because I think that they play a big role, because if you go onto the forums or go onto the Facebook groups for GR Corollas, dealership antics are at all-time high. And I understand because I've taken my car to the dealership, though I can stand outside and see where my car comes in and out, so they can't sneak around the back or anything. I do know from the reaction I've gotten from just driving up and just asking a question about the car, how people and lot porters and guys like, oh, I haven't seen one of these. I never got to drive one of these. I never got to be inside of one of these. And I'm like, I mean, that's cool to enjoy the car, but sometimes just take a little too far. So I know that there are many people that will see this and say, I need something like that. And we'll see what the next thing is. I do know that what I want to do when it comes, let's say motor-wise, when it comes to the headwork and the valve springs and the pistons, and I've been talking to that company in Australia, and the conversation is still going, because I want to really record and do something big when it comes to showing people what you can do on your own as a DIY. But I do know that it's time that I'm probably going to shift and kind of just do more. I'm probably going to slow down on the power performance side of it, lean more towards suspension and more status. I get wheels I want. I have front lips and all that, but I want to change them. I'm waiting for Cybon to introduce what they're doing because I saw a render of it. It looks dope. I saw what HKS did. I saw that Epelson, there's some company out there that's making another kit for the GR Corolla that I'm on the fence for it. But regardless, it continues. I love the car. I want to do some POV driving videos because I've been just going out to drive the car at night sometimes. My wife, she might go to my mother-in-law's house with the kids, and sometimes I just leave and go drive west. I don't even know where I'd be going. I'd be somewhere in like Columbus, Texas, and I just hit a U-turn and come back home, take the scenic route, all windy roads, all up and down the back. So I might do some POV drives because I do them all. I take them all the time anyways on my own. So that might come too. And until then, the podcast will continue. I will be back here next week, as usual, on our designated time every week with the CarQuicks Podcast. And as I say every day, I don't say it every day. That'd be kind of crazy. I say it every week when I end it here. Do as you wish and do as you may. Thanks for joining me. This is Cameron Biggs, your host again for another episode. Tell your friends, tell your loved ones, join in, listen in, and I'll be here next week for some more car news. I'll see y'all around. Peace.